Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of The Source. Today we have a very special guest. Special guest, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me. My name's Jake Zerbe. I'm in executive recruiting at Marquetta. So I focus on full cycle searches for everything principal plus and director plus across the company, mainly prod tech, but I go across both sides.
Okay, very cool. Now we've had some conversations a lot about AI and the pros and cons of it. You said something interesting to me, I think in our last bit of a chat about leveraging market data with AI. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, market data is kind of the precursor to how you're going to dive into sourcing. For
Mm,
me, leveraging AI to basically fact check or help improve your search for market data is very helpful. So, where I've used it recently is trying to generate open source information to basically steer my sourcing focus. That could be anything from like Bureau of Labor and Statistics to diversity information across different populations, looking for different lists or contexts or rankings, but basically letting the AI tool do the heavy lifting to tee up the data for you. And then you can dive in to slice, dice, and use it however you'd like. So essentially, it's not replacing what I do, it's just making it easier and quicker and looking across the internet. And I don't use just one AI tool. I try not to sole source anything. So I bounce it off of a variety of them and then pick and choose what I want to use. But ultimately, it makes the process much quicker, cleaner, and fact based.
okay, okay. I like using market data. I think it saves a lot of time, especially in setting expectations of hiring managers. Now, I'm thinking specifically of this one example where this one well-meaning company had a certain quota they wanted to reach certain diversity goals. So they said they wanted 50% of their workforce to be a particular demographic, whatnot. And the person who was working with them was able to adjust their expectations based on market data. You can't have this higher percentage of whatever if the population just does not support that. Would you agree using market data helps to bring a dose of reality to certain hiring managers out there?
100%. And I wrote an article for you guys a few months ago about leveraging open source data to try and drive diversity hiring and improve in different pockets. And essentially, what we did is we mapped out different populations of Latinx candidates or different populations of African American candidates or higher female populations within tech. And then we overlaid tech hubs on top of it. And then we started diving deeper into specific regions. So when we presented that to the different hiring managers, they were shocked at different markets they were just completely ignoring because everyone goes to the major tech hubs. They'll go to New York, they'll go to Boston, San Francisco, Seattle. Everyone ignores Latinx populations in the Southwest or African American populations in the Southeast. So by basically walking through the data with the hiring managers, we were not only able to steer them to the proper populations where they're going to have the most success per candidate pool in those geographies, but we were also able to map out just new pockets for them entirely that they had not thought about whatsoever. So I think leveraging the market data not only lets you bring the hiring managers to the table and show them the data to sway their opinion, but you're also opening up new pockets and new geographies that a lot of recruiters will traditionally ignore.
Yeah. What are some rather interesting ways you've seen people use data, marketing data in their recruiting processes? One thing that comes to mind for me that I remember in a previous life is using market data to figure out the best places to build a server farm, because they have enough demographically, they have enough engineers there to hire from and support it. What are other uses you think people could be using marketing data for or market data for?
Yeah, market data, I think what a lot of companies are doing now, because whenever you see the market go down, all of a sudden you see changes whether it be in the C-suite or the sales team or accounting and revenue operations, because companies are trying to look at the data differently to see what they can do, what they currently have. So for me, I am seeing lots of companies, okay, we're going to go ahead and offshore, or we're going to push these jobs to Canada or Mexico. But right now, with like a very different geopolitical climate, folks are changing that mentality and they're like, how can we save money but do it within the US? So now they're looking more at like a national band, or they're pushing this to the Midwest or to populations or regions where they believe that the margins will be slightly better. And by doing that and shifting away from the top tier, super expensive hubs like the New York, San Francisco, they're getting very similar talent, but you can't find that talent unless you're doing true deep market dives. So essentially looking for folks that might have historically have been in San Francisco and New York and then moved to these regions, and looking for companies that have migrated to those regions. Then once you have that down selected, you can work to crunch the numbers to try and figure out what the savings might be. But ultimately, it's leveraging the data as effectively as possible to get buy-in from hiring managers and show cost savings.
Do you think this is the evolution of sourcing to become more data analyst, data analytical? So you can tell the hiring managers or whoever, this is where we need to advertise. This is where we need to target companies we need to target. These are the people we need to target because of the data. And you're having these kind of conversations before you even start sourcing. Do you think that's the next evolution?
Yeah, I firmly believe like data driven, market informed is 100% the way to go. Even when I think about sourcing, people are like, oh, I'm going to focus on diversity sourcing today. To me, that's just sourcing. Like you don't even have to call that out at this point in time. I think people get it confused. So when I look at it, if you're not using data or market information for your sourcing, you're not doing a full version of sourcing. You're doing like basically keyword sourcing, which is only going to get you so far. So if you're just scratching the surface here, the data will bring you to here, the market insights bring you here, and then it will just evolve within the company itself.
What do you say to someone who says, okay, I hear the importance of data and how to use it, but I'm not a numbers person. I'm not an analyst, so I don't know how to do all this stuff. Would you suggest that someone go to school to learn this, or you think the tools are so robust these days that you don't have to take on added education? You can sort of pick the right tool and you're good.
You can pick tooling, but I think it's more of a macroeconomic understanding. So you don't have to be in the weeds of the data to recognize patterns and trends. So what I would suggest to people to start is live in the space that you're working. So if you're recruiting for software engineers, make sure that you go deep technically from your understanding, not just of the tech, but also the markets, the evolution, and where people are gravitating towards and gravitating from. So if you can map out the macro, that'll get you by for now. And then once you have your firm process of macro established, that's when you start going deeper in different areas. It's not something that can be changed or digested overnight. But if you're able to start here and then refine your process, learning from others and following people that are doing talks and writing articles and things of that nature, you can then refine it and make it your own within your space. But without that information and without following patterns and trends, you're just going to repeat the same mistakes. You're going to be doing the same tricks that people have tried and failed on. So it's just much better to learn, watch where other people have done well, watch where they've failed, watch where they've succeeded, and then make it your own.
Sound like you're going to need a lot of critical thinking skills. How can sources and recruiters build up their critical thinking skills in your opinion?
It's a tough one. I mean, you have to know the difference between. So I hear a lot of recruiters regurgitate the same information, but if you try and dip in, okay, you're looking for software engineers. What language do they work with? Well, for this, it's Java. Okay, well, what's the rest of the technology stack? Can you accept these languages? And they tend to shut down in some cases. You just have to go deeper. You have to know not just what you're looking for, but the difference between A, B, C, and D. And then again, back to the macro, like core tech, like you have to know, all right, if our bands fall within this parameter, we're probably not looking for an A tier player in these markets. But based on the data, we're probably looking for a B tier player and we can afford within this space. So I think just knowing that is going to allow people to unpack and think through things a little bit differently. What I've seen historically, though, is a lot of recruiters will dive into each rec like it's their first rec, and then they replicate what they've done over and over, but they're not reusing information or data. So I think
Mm.
building out and mapping a process and working through those stages for each rec, but then using all the data from each search so that you can then spread it out across the team and essentially almost open source to get feedback on how you're searching and why and what went wrong. That's very helpful. So I know that we internally, we have a Slack channel for market insights. So whenever there's layoffs, C-suite shift, geopolitical changes, anything of that nature, we throw it in there and we'll talk about it async to try and drive ideas. And then we'll do a divide and conquer approach because we don't want to water down our process just because something's happening that day. So you don't want to have 10 recruiters reaching out to the same market for the same roles. That can get sloppy and step on each other. You want to have it be clean and methodical, how you'd run a normal process. Just the data and the insights are really the green light that it's time to go for those specific companies.
You know, what it sounds like you're describing would be a very cool recruitment intelligence database, you know, because once you mapped out how to find, I don't know, software engineer X, you could say these are the companies to target. This is the salary that they pay. This is the benefits that they pay. And by the way, this is the market right now. So a year ago, it would cost you so much money to hire this person, but now that the market is what it is, you could probably go a little bit lower. So now it's an ideal time to hire this kind of person. Maybe have like a little stock ticker showing this is the optimum time to hire these people or that kind of stuff. Is there anything out there like that right now that you know of?
Yes, there is. And I wrote a different article about heat mapping and
Okay.
using, I think it's TradeViz, and it heat maps the S&P 500. So in a quick snapshot, you can look at what's green and what's red and target the reds because they're dropping. And then you can look at those without even having to understand what's on there and just focus, then break it down by industry and work from that point. So TradeViz definitely helps in that regard. And then knowing where things are coming to and from, it really just depends on the tools that you're leveraging. Like there are open source tools to show a variety of different layoffs, like layoffs.fyi. You
Yeah.
can Google just layoff and like walk through different news articles and things of that nature. So it really just comes down to what you're looking for and how much information there is. But when you're stacking up all the open source information, say you look on TradeViz, okay, Tesla's down 20%. Why is that? Okay, Tesla news. Okay, this makes sense based off of this, but it does have this type of curve. So that's not really an anomaly per se. But if you look at other companies, you're like, all right, this company's dropping continually. What is going on here? And you dig in and see, all right, lots of short positions, no one's going long. That's something that could be meaty that people are probably ready to jump if they haven't. And that would be where I'd focus. So for me, I let the data steer where I look, and then I let the market information help me decide if I want to reach out or not.
And since in that instance, the company is going down in value based on the data and the stock price and so forth, then you know the people who work there are probably more open to a conversation because they're wondering, wow, we're going to have layoffs here pretty soon. So it's a good time for a recruiter to call. Interesting, but it sounds like that trade viz is made for business overall, not for recruiters in specific, correct?
Correct. A lot of the tools that I use are actually not tools that most recruiters use. They're really for higher level traders or macroeconomic folks because they're looking at patterns and trends and trying to tie if this happens to X, what happens to Y so that we can figure out what to do with Z. I use them just because it's the quickest, easiest snapshot that is live to tell you what's going on in the market. It also removes any bias that I have. So a lot of times when you mention a company, people are like, I don't really like that, or I hear that that company X. Remove those biases. Look at the data and then do the fact checking for the market insights and come to your own conclusion. And if you're doing that with like a tool like TradeViz, you're doing it live, then you're checking the data to reconfirm. The math just points to it's a much smarter choice to go at those companies and folks within just based off of the timing and what's happening.
And then say you add to that thing information like um, when recruiting against company X, talk about our benefits because our benefits are better than company X, or talk about our patents because we have more patents than Company X. So not only do you see that the market is ripe to target this company for their technical people or their help or whatever, it's also to our advantage because we can get them and it would be considered a raise or promotion for them because we can afford to pay more than our competitor. That would be an awesome tool. Maybe somebody watching will say, let's
It really
let's
would. Like a
build that.
one-stop shop would be very
Yeah.
good. I mean, it's why all recruiters have so many tabs open because you're scrolling through these different open source tools. But the
Hmm.
more you consolidate, the more you can quick make them for quick, easy snapshot use, just the faster that you become. So if your fundamentals are good, and then you stack in tools for timing, and then you do research as far as will they be receptive, it just makes a lot of sense. And it's going to end up yielding a much higher response rate. I've seen my response rates consistently at 35 to 40% positive response rate on LinkedIn. And
Okay.
that's within exec with diversity. But it's because I'm doing a ton of legwork up front. I'm not just diving in. So by the time I'm sending a message, I feel very good about my target pool and it yields those types of results. So ultimately, then tying back to what we were talking about before, you stack in AI to remove some of the heavy lifting and you're moving quicker and cleaner. So it's just a way to set up to scale a process that you've built out.
Very nice. Very nice. I think we can go on talking about data for, for a while, but if somebody wanted to reach out to you specifically, and they had some more data questions to ask, how can they find you online?
LinkedIn, very easy to find. Jake Zerbe, I work at Marquetta. They can reach out directly. I always reply. Just make sure you ask the question and kind of point to what you want to chat about. And I'm happy to grab time to speak with anybody.
Great. Thank you so much for being on the source, sir. You are appreciated.
All right. Thank you, Jim.